Hello, fellow California realtors. I am back with another Broker Corner video. Today, I would like to talk about counteroffers and multiple counteroffers and how they're different and how these forms actually work. So let's jump right in. Okay, let's start off with a couple of things with counteroffers. So here I have a seller counteroffer one. The first thing I want to mention about counteroffers is the numbering. I see this done incorrectly all the time. This should be the number of the counteroffer that the seller has made. So in this case, they're doing counter number one. The buyer might come back with a buyer counter one. Then the seller might counter number two, and the buyer might come back with a buyer counter two. So it's the number of seller counteroffers, not the total number of counter offers. Hopefully that helps. As you'll notice, this is not to be used as a multiple counteroffer. We're going to get into that next. And I want to talk about some of the important things about a counteroffer. And I've highlighted some of them as we go along. So I guess I want to just mention number one that it states here the terms and conditions of the above referenced document, which is typically the purchase agreement, are accepted subject to the following. So all the terms are accepted except for what you put on this counteroffer. Next thing I want to mention is liquidated damages and arbitration. I see this all the time where one party has initialed the liquidated damages or arbitration and another one hasn't. If that happens and you don't have a counteroffer, you actually don't have an agreed upon offer. The counteroffer does actually address this. So it essentially says that if one party signs it and the other doesn't, then it's actually excluded from the contract. So keep that in mind, unless you're going to write it into this counteroffer. Next thing I kind of want to just, touch upon is appraisal gaps. So appraisal gaps a couple years ago were a big thing. Mainly, I just want to mention that if you've written an appraisal gap into your offer and you're receiving a counteroffer that's increasing the price, the appraisal gap doesn't change, so it stays the same. So as you can see, I've countered the price, so I'm accepting everything else in their offer but the price. I'm also going to incorporate a seller's purchase of replacement property. I represent the seller, they have a house to buy, so I'm incorporating that into this counteroffer. Another thing I want to touch on is that this offer, it does have an expiration, obviously, but just be aware that the seller can accept another offer prior to receiving this signed counteroffer back. So, be cautious about telling your buyers that it's a done deal or any of those kind of things, because until you sign this document as a buyer and send it back to the seller or the seller's agent, it's not a done deal. And in fact, they have the right to continue to offer the property for sale until they get this offer back. So, and they can withdraw it at any time. So things to keep in mind. So this is a pretty standard counteroffer, fairly simple. Let's talk about multiple counteroffers for a minute. Here I've got a seller multiple counteroffer, and all the same things I mentioned apply in the previous document. I guess I want to touch upon how it's different. And really how it's different is essentially addressed in this paragraph here. So I'm gonna read it and we'll talk about it. Seller is making multiple counteroffers to other prospective buyers on terms that may or may not be the same. So they can make counteroffers to multiple people. They don't necessarily have to be the same offer. And this multiple counteroffer does not bind the seller and buyer unless all of the following occur at the time specified below. So first thing that has to happen is the seller has to sign here, making the counteroffer. The buyer has to sign in section 7, accepting the counteroffer. And then in section 8, the seller has to choose this counteroffer. So technically they might have made 3 or 4 multiple counteroffers to different buyers, and they can get them all back. And once they receive them back, they're going to choose the counteroffer they want by completing section 8 and sending it back to the buyer's agent. Upon receipt by the buyer's agent, that is when it is a done deal. So there's an additional step on multiple counteroffers where the seller has to choose the offer that they're going to go with. So hopefully that clears up some of that confusion. One thing I do want to mention on this is that if the buyer counters the multiple counter offer, okay, and sends it back to the seller doesn't sign down here. In fact, it says it right here. Do not sign in this box until after buyer signs in paragraph 7. Do not sign in this box if the seller multiple counter offer is subject to an attached counter offer from the buyer. So this doesn't get completed unless you're accepting the counter offer back from the buyer, okay? So hopefully this is helpful. Quite a bit of confusion. One other thing I'll mention about seller counteroffer numbering. If you're doing multiple counteroffers to buyers, you're not numbering these for each buyer. Like buyer 1 is number 1 and buyer 2 is number 2. Again, with the numbering, I see this done incorrectly all the time. Seller multiple counter offer 1 to this buyer. Another buyer comes along, that is seller multiple counter offer number 1 to that buyer. So you're keeping track of how many counter offers you've made or your side has made to the other side. Hopefully that clears that up for you. So that is it for today on counter offers. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I hope this was helpful, and get back out there and sell some real estate and have a great day.